In today's episode, we're sharing 3 stories of people who were attacked by sharks. From a woman seeking peace after a near-death accident to a beach day that ended in panic and blood. But first, we begin in Florida, where a college student boarded a luxury yacht and never came home. It was July 18, 2015 off the coast of Florida, the kind of summer day that seemed endless. The Gulf of Mexico gleamed under a flawless sky, the surface still and brilliant, reflecting the sun like a mirror. For the Calloway family and their guest, the St. Jameses, this was meant to be the start of a perfect weekend, one filled with luxury, salt air, and memories captured against the backdrop of the open sea. Their yacht was named Coastal Serenity, an 85-foot Sunseeker Manhattan worth nearly $1 million. It featured 4 staterooms, leather interiors, twin jet skis, and a custom diving platform built into the stern. James Calloway, a real estate developer who had made his fortune transforming coastal land into luxury properties, considered the yacht a symbol of everything he had achieved. The boat was his retreat, his trophy, his escape from the deadlines and deals that defined his days. Owning a yacht wasn't just indulgence, it was proof of arrival. On board with James were his wife Eleanor, their 2 teenage children Madison and Tyler, and their friends Mark and Lisa St. James, along with their kids Michael and Lyra. The group had launched from their private dock in Naples early that morning. By midday, they'd reached a quiet cove 12 miles offshore known for calm waters and excellent visibility. The anchor dropped into 80-foot deep water and the yacht settled gently into place. The surface around them was almost unnaturally calm. Lunch was served on the aft deck. A chef had prepared grilled fish, tropical fruit, and icy drinks. Laughter rose from the table. The adults relaxed in the shade while the teenagers stretched out along the rails, talking and scrolling through their phones. A pod of dolphins passed in the distance, drawing a round of cheers and excited pointing. Everything felt cinematic, framed by light and ease. The entire scene played out like a postcard, a little too perfect, almost scripted. Lyra Calloway, 19, was quiet but never withdrawn. She had just finished her first year at Northwestern, where she was studying marine biology. Lyra had always been drawn to the water. It was where she felt most alive, most focused. She volunteered at aquariums, read about marine ecosystems, and often sketched sea life in the margins of her notebooks. She was observant and kind, someone who listened more than she spoke. She had not expected to be invited on a luxury yacht, but when Madison, her college roommate, extended the offer, Lyra had accepted without hesitation. This wasn't just a getaway, it was a glimpse into a life far removed from her own. And it was a chance to be closer to the ocean she loved. The teens changed into their swimsuits after lunch and headed toward the stern, excited to swim. The water was warm at 82 degrees and the visibility extended nearly 30 feet below. The custom diving platform gleamed under the sun. Madison jumped first, followed by Tyler, who made a dramatic splash. Michael stayed back with a waterproof camcorder filming the action. Lyra hesitated only briefly, then stepped onto the ledge and dove cleanly into the sea. She didn't perform or pose, just slipped below the surface like she belonged there. For the next 10 minutes, they rotated between climbing, jumping, and swimming just beyond the yacht. The water was crystal clear, the kind that felt impossible to leave. Fish darted around their ankles, the sun burned high overhead, glittering off the chop. The adults remained on deck, drinks in hand, occasionally glancing toward the water. The sea rocked gently, and there was a stillness to the air that almost felt too perfect. Nothing seemed wrong, nothing gave away what was just below them. The first impact came without warning. A deep thud struck the yacht's port side. Glasses tipped over and chairs shifted. For a moment, no one knew what had happened. Captain Rodriguez checked the control panel and confirmed they were anchored above 65 feet of open water. There were no reefs, no sandbars, just the ocean. A second, more powerful strike hit the stern. This time, the yacht lurched. The platform groaned as it shifted against the bolts. Tyler, who had been climbing the ladder, slipped and splashed backward into the sea. The sound echoed across the deck. Everyone turned toward the rear of the yacht. Then the fin surfaced. It was massive, slicing through the water in a wide arc. Beneath it, a dark shape moved with deliberate force. What emerged next was unmistakable: a great white shark, later estimated to be 18 feet long and nearly 4,000 pounds. It had been circling beneath them, likely drawn by the engine vibrations or erratic patterns of swimmers splashing just feet from the hull. Lyra was already swimming toward Tyler. He had drifted slightly from the others after his fall, and she reached him quickly, urging him toward the ladder. Michael climbed out of the water. Madison was halfway up. The rest of the group shouted from the deck, panic spreading across their faces. The shark circled once, then rammed the diving platform a third time. The strike was violent. A 3-foot gash opened below the waterline. Alarms rang from the control panel as seawater began to rush into the engine bay. Lyra and Tyler were still in the water. The shark passed under Tyler again, its rough skin slicing abrasions across his side. Then it turned sharply. It wasn't interested in him, its focus shifted. It closed in on Lyra. The force of the strike lifted her halfway out of the water. Blood erupted across the surface as she was pulled beneath in a sudden surge. For several seconds, there was nothing. No movement, no color, just silence. James dove in immediately. He swam hard toward the spot where Lyra had vanished. The water was darker now, cloudy with blood and bubbles. Then, somehow, she surfaced. She surfaced on her back, barely conscious, her leg torn open below the thigh. Tissue shredded, the joint limp, blood streaming in thick, pulsing clouds. Her body shook in small, involuntary jerks, eyes half closed, lips parting in shallow, panicked gasps. She wasn't screaming, she didn't have the strength. They were just 15 feet from the ladder when the shark returned. It came in low, from beneath and behind, its massive body a shadow against the deep. With terrifying precision, it struck upward, ripping Lyra from James' grasp in a single brutal surge. The water detonated in a spray of blood and foam as she vanished beneath the surface. James dove immediately, heart pounding, lungs burning. But the sea had turned opaque, thick with blood and churn. He couldn't see anything, only the echo of thrashing, then silence. By the time he surfaced, gasping, the ocean had gone still again. The shark had disappeared into deeper water, retreating the way large predators often do after a kill, silent, efficient, and unseen. For a moment, there was nothing but the gentle lap of waves against the hull. Then, in the distance, something bobbed to the surface. Pale, motionless, a single arm drifting in the swell. The Coast Guard arrived 18 minutes after Rodriguez's flare. A rescue team located Lyra's body nearly a mile away. She had washed up on a stretch of sand, face down in the surf, her hair tangled in seaweed and her body torn in multiple places. She had been carried by the current, but not far enough to disappear. James was hospitalized with deep lacerations across his torso and arms. He received 87 stitches. Tyler, though physically unharmed beyond surface wounds, was unable to speak for days. At some point, the recording had stopped. No one asked to see the footage. That night, Michael took the camcorder from the table, removed the tape, and walked outside. He dropped it into the fire pit and left before the flames had fully caught. No one asked about it. The footage was never mentioned again. The yacht was hauled back to shore for repairs. The structural damage was extensive, but it was never restored. James sold it quietly within 3 months. Neither he nor Eleanor ever returned to the water. Marine biologists confirmed the attacker as a female great white. Some speculated the shark had been disoriented by shifting currents or driven closer to shore by warming waters. Others believed the vibrations of the anchored yacht might have triggered a territorial reaction. No one could say with certainty what caused the aggression. Months later, on the opposite coast, a woman stepped into the surf for the first time since a devastating car accident. Her body was healing, her mind was trying to catch up. And as she paddled into the calm, glassy waters, she had no idea what was already circling beneath her. It was May 12, 2023 when Melissa Carpenter zipped up her wetsuit and stepped into the morning that would change everything. The sun had barely cleared the horizon, casting gold across the Pacific, and the shoreline at Torrey Pines was unusually still. The kind of stillness that hums in your chest and makes you wonder if something's waiting just beneath the surface. The tide pulled in slow, steady breaths, and somewhere far off a seagull cried. It should have felt peaceful, but peace can be deceptive. Melissa had driven to the beach before dawn, gripping the steering wheel tighter than she needed to. The crash had taken so much, her ability to walk unaided, her career momentum, her sense of control. Recovery had been slow and brutal. 8 months of physical therapy, weekends relearning how to sit, how to stand, how to trust her body again. Surfing wasn't just a bucket list whim, it was the final threshold. If she could ride a wave even once, maybe she could finally leave the trauma behind. She was the kind of person who did everything quietly but with purpose. A woman who remembered birthdays, sent handwritten notes, and left groceries on doorsteps without signing her name. Her apartment overflowed with greenery and watercolor paintings of birds and tide pools. Before the accident, she volunteered at the animal shelter and spent weekends sketching by the bluffs. Friends called her gentle. Her therapist called her resilient. Melissa didn't see herself as either. She just knew she didn't want fear to dictate her life anymore. The decision to try surfing had come in a moment of instinct, spontaneous but strangely certain. The ocean had always represented something sacred to her. Not adventure, but rhythm. Not adrenaline, but surrender. This morning, with the sun rising and the beach mostly empty, she believed she could claim a small piece of herself back. By 7:30 a.m., she was standing barefoot in the sand, staring at the waves like they might speak first. Jake Mendoza, her instructor, waved from down the beach. He was easygoing, confident, and already setting up 2 surfboards. He'd been briefed about Melissa's history and promised they'd take it slow. Just fundamentals, safety first. They started with warm-ups on the beach. Jake walked her through the basic posture, the motion of paddling, the importance of knowing how to fall. Melissa practiced the pop-up again and again, stumbling on the soft sand, then correcting herself. Her movements weren't graceful, but there was progress in each try. Jake nodded. She was ready. By 8:30, they were waist-deep in the water, and Melissa felt the first true flicker of doubt. The sea, cool and vast, swallowed her lower half. The water was only 65 degrees, but it felt colder, sharper. As she floated over a small breaker, her breath hitched. The sensation was too familiar, floating, weightless, uncertain. She remembered the moment the car spun, the way gravity had vanished, the silence before impact. Jake was beside her. He tapped the nose of her board and reminded her to breathe, to let her board hold her, to remember she was in control. Melissa nodded. She pressed down with her palms and adjusted her position, letting the board carry her out past the turbulence. The waves calmed, the sky opened wider, and for a moment it felt like progress. But peace never stays. By 9:45 a.m., they had moved farther out, about 50 yards from shore. The waves had picked up slightly, gentle rolling swells that lifted Melissa's board with grace. From the beach, the lifeguard tower stood like a distant watchman, the figures of sunbathers and early swimmers scattered across the coastline. The world looked soft from out here, almost unreal. Jake scanned the water. He saw a clean wave rising in the distance and pointed to it. Not too fast, not too steep. He told Melissa to paddle. She did. The board surged forward beneath her. She pressed her palms flat, brought one knee forward, then stood. For 3 seconds, just 3, she balanced atop the wave, arms outstretched, mouth open in a breathless smile. That was when the water beneath her erupted. A massive force collided with the underside of her board, lifting it violently and throwing her clear into the air. Melissa slammed into the sea with a hard splash, her breath vanishing on impact. She came up gasping, eyes wide, limbs flailing. Jake was already paddling toward her, assuming she had wiped out. Then he saw it. The water just beyond her shifted in a way that wasn't natural. A shadow, thick and fast, cut through the swell. It turned, curved, disappeared beneath her. Then the dorsal fin surfaced. The shark was enormous, nearly 11 feet long, dark gray and heavy-bodied, a mature female bull shark. Though neither Melissa nor Jake had time to consider species, they only saw the size, the speed, and the sickening stillness that followed each movement. The board had drifted 6 feet away. Melissa was treading water disoriented. Jake yelled for her to get back on it, loud, sharp, insistent. She reached for the board. The shark moved again. It circled once, its dorsal fin cutting a clean arc across the surface. Nearby surfers had started paddling hard for shore, yelling warnings. From the lifeguard tower, a whistle screamed across the waves. But it was too late. The second strike came from the side, fast and absolute. The shark clamped down on Melissa's right thigh just above the knee and pulled her under in a red bloom. Jake reached the spot seconds later. There was nothing but froth and blood. Then she surfaced screaming. Her leg was mangled, muscle torn wide open, and the water around her bloomed crimson. Jake grabbed her under the arms and hauled her half onto his board. His lips were pale, his limbs shaking. Blood poured in pulsing waves from the wound. She was alive, but not for long. Lifeguards were already in motion. One sprinted from the tower while another paddled toward them on a rescue board. From shore, scattered onlookers were now standing frozen, their gazes locked on the commotion unfolding in the surf. The shark returned. Its fin rose again, carving straight toward them. Jake didn't hesitate. He pushed Melissa onto the rescue board as the lifeguard reached them. Then he turned, placing himself between her and the advancing shape. The shark struck his board hard, snapping it near the tail. The impact sent him tumbling sideways into the water. As Jake surfaced, he saw the lifeguard paddling fast, Melissa clinging weakly to the rescue handles. Jake grabbed the broken half of his board and thrashed it against the water, trying to create noise and confusion. It worked. The shark veered and circled him briefly, then vanished below. He swam hard for shore. When they reached the beach, Melissa was ghost pale. Her pulse flickered beneath her skin, shallow and fast. Lifeguards hauled her onto the sand and began CPR immediately. A crowd gathered in stunned silence, drawn by the chaos but unsure what they were witnessing. Jake collapsed beside her, covered in salt and blood, breath rasping from his lungs. Paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. They worked fast. Oxygen, compressions, epinephrine, but nothing slowed the blood loss. Melissa never regained consciousness. At 10:37 a.m., she was pronounced dead. The official cause, exsanguination from a severed femoral artery. Drone footage later confirmed the shark was a bull shark, one of the largest recorded in Southern California in years. Nearly 11 feet long, likely displaced by warmer waters or confused by shifting feeding patterns. The beach was closed for 48 hours. Scientists called it unusual but not unheard of. The ocean, it seemed, was changing. Jake disappeared from the surf scene, not in a dramatic way, he just didn't come back. The website for his surf school went offline within the week. The boards he used for instruction were never claimed from the beach rental shack. He didn't give interviews, didn't post on social media. Some said he moved north, others said he took a job inland far from the water, but no one really knew. After a while, people stopped asking. Melissa didn't come looking for a thrill, she came searching for peace, a quiet return to something she had lost. But the ocean doesn't care why you enter. And a few months earlier on the other side of the world, 5 college students stepped past a red flag fluttering in the wind. They weren't searching for peace, they were just chasing fun. One of them never made it back. It was February 15, 2011, a gray, rain-drenched day along the New South Wales coastline. Bondi Beach, known for its wide white sands and easy surf, was strangely quiet. The rain had started before dawn and hadn't let up since. A light mist clung to the air, muting the sea into a dull smear of green-gray. Normally, this beach welcomes over 2 million people a year, but that day it was nearly empty. A single red flag flapped on the lifeguard tower, signaling rough water and poor visibility. No one paid much attention. Shark sightings around Bondi were rare, and fatal attacks were rarer still, only a few scattered across decades. Statistically speaking, the odds were slim, but statistics don't matter when the water turns red. The group that arrived that afternoon weren't locals. They were 21-year-old American exchange students studying abroad at the University of Sydney. 5 of them: Blake Harrison, Derek Collins, Alicia Ramirez, Tasha Williams, and Marcus Rowe. They had become fast friends in just 6 weeks. Blake, a confident, sun-bleached business major from California, had planned the trip. He was the kind of person who treated beach days like rituals. Flip-flops, frisbee, cold drinks, and jokes that never landed but were always loud. The others were more subdued. Derek was a thoughtful pre-med student from Boston. Alicia was athletic and pragmatic, her environmental science coursework always seeping into conversation. Tasha filmed everything like she was producing a travel blog. And Marcus, quiet, perceptive, kind, never asked to be the center of attention. He just showed up for the people who needed him. They arrived around 2:30 p.m., the sky still spitting rain. The beach was damp and empty, the lot holding only 2 other vehicles. Waves rolled in, steady and wind-churned. A single red warning flag had been raised early that morning, and a lifeguard in a yellow slicker sat perched high in the tower, scanning the water. The group made jokes about having the whole beach to themselves, as if they were getting away with something. But while they were focused on the sky above, none of them thought to wonder what was moving through the water below. They unpacked quickly, tarp, speaker, cooler, and spread out as if they owned the beach. Tasha started filming, narrating with a mock British accent as she introduced their group to the camera. 5 Americans claiming Bondi Beach in the middle of a rainstorm. They laughed, they posed. But beneath the surface, just beyond the breakers, something stirred. The rain clouded the water, but it hadn't driven everything away. Blake laughed off the conditions. They weren't going out far, he said. Just a swim to shake off midterm stress. Something to break up the rainy monotony. No one expected anything unusual, but the water that day held more than current and rain. They spread out a waterproof tarp 100 yards from the tower, weighed it down with backpacks, and cracked open a cooler. For nearly an hour, they played a half-hearted game of frisbee, ate pre-made sandwiches, and passed a speaker around. Tasha filmed short clips for her Instagram story, narrating dramatically in a fake accent. "And here we are," she said, 5 Americans conquering Bondi Beach in the rain. Marcus mostly observed. He was always like that. Quiet, a step behind, but never out of sync. He offered a running commentary of jokes just low enough for only Alicia to hear, which made her laugh even harder. Despite the gray skies and drizzle, there was a real sense of ease between them. The kind of day that, had it ended differently, would have felt golden in memory. At 3:45 p.m., Blake suggested they swim. Tasha declined, preferring to stay dry and watch the bags. The others followed Blake to the shoreline. The water was warm, about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and the surf was messy but manageable, waves curling at 3 feet high. As they entered, a lifeguard jogged over and warned them to stay within the flags and not go deeper than their chests. Rip currents were active and visibility was poor. They nodded, promising to be cautious. Within minutes, they were waist-deep, laughing and dunking each other. They body-surfed clumsily through broken waves, yelled over the wind, and let the current tug at their feet. It felt harmless. It felt fun. No one noticed the subtle pull of the tide, the small drifts that separated them. They didn't notice the distance stretching behind them. Little by little, the group drifted apart. Derek and Alicia stayed closer to shore. Blake and Marcus, both confident swimmers, ventured farther out, eager to catch cleaner waves past the first break. They didn't notice how far they'd gone. From the beach, they were now just 2 heads bobbing in a slate-colored horizon. The rain blurred their outlines. The sea was no longer shallow and familiar, it had become wide open and unknowable. At 4:16 p.m., Marcus felt something brush his leg, just a bump. He turned expecting to see Blake, but instead the water exploded. A great white shark, 15 feet long, nearly 2,000 pounds, rose from below in a vertical burst. Its jaws locked onto Marcus's lower body, tearing through flesh and bone in a single brutal motion. The impact lifted Marcus out of the water, his arms flailing as a red spray followed him upward. The shark didn't just bite, it clamped down and shook him violently, as if testing the limits of what it could destroy. Marcus screamed, a raw, panicked sound that carried all the way to shore. Blood fanned out in wide crimson arcs, turning the water cloudy in seconds. Blake was just 6 feet away. He froze. 1 heartbeat, 2, he stared at Marcus, at the gaping jaws, at the thrashing limbs. Then instinct took over. He dove arms out, kicking furiously toward the horror unfolding beside him. But the water was murky now, brown and red and thick. He couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't find his friend. On shore, Tasha screamed. Alicia and Derek were already swimming back, shouting for help. Lifeguards leapt into action. One launched a jet ski while another grabbed a rescue board and paddled fast into the break. Blake surfaced again, gasping. The shark was gone, so was Marcus. For a moment, the sea went still, just bubbles and a spreading stain. Then a pale form floated into view, face down, 30 feet away. The jet ski reached Marcus first. His body was limp, his legs were mangled below the knee. Lifeguards hoisted him onto the sled and began CPR as they gunned it back toward the sand. Blake was pulled onto the rescue board by a lifeguard who urged him to hold on. By the time they hit shore, a crowd had formed despite the rain. Beachgoers and tourists stood frozen as CPR continued. Paramedics arrived at 4:28 p.m. IV lines were started, blood was administered. At 4:37 p.m., a helicopter from Royal North Shore Hospital landed on the sand. Marcus was airlifted within minutes. At 5:03 p.m., he was declared dead in transit. He never regained consciousness. His cause of death? Exsanguination and massive trauma. The aftermath rippled. Bondi Beach was closed for 3 days. Aerial drones and helicopters scoured the coastline. The shark was never seen again. Experts analyzed the bite radius and concluded it was a great white, likely female and unprovoked. The recent rainfall had stirred sediment and flushed fish closer to shore, creating ideal hunting conditions for apex predators. The students had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Back on campus, the group unraveled. Tasha deleted all her videos. Alicia stopped going near the water. Derek became withdrawn, his grades slipping. Blake tried to keep it together, but the image of Marcus in the shark's mouth haunted him. He withdrew from his classes, packed a bag, and returned to California. Marcus's parents flew in from Seattle to bring their son home. They met with his friends and the lifeguards who tried to save him, offering quiet thanks instead of blame. They asked only one thing, that people remember him as more than a victim. Later, they donated to a marine research initiative through the University of Sydney, directed not at revenge but at understanding. They didn't want a scholarship in his name, they just wanted fewer families to get the same call. Even so, the university created something small but lasting, the Marcus Rowe Marine Safety Grant, a student-led research fund supporting marine safety awareness and shark migration studies. Blake never spoke at the launch event. He couldn't. He just stood in the back holding the pamphlet in his hands, reading Marcus's name printed on the front. Bondi Beach implemented new safety changes later that year. Visibility alerts were added to daily warnings, lifeguards were trained in faster deployment, shark buoys and underwater sonar sensors were expanded across New South Wales. But none of what happened could be undone that afternoon. Some stories end with answers, this one didn't. It ended with a scream, a red tide, and silence. Thanks for watching. If you thought these were intense, the next episode goes even deeper. Click the end screen. you're not ready for what's coming.